It's the advent of Cyber 2023, and we are on a mission to save Christmas. McGreedy, you are going down. I have the THM Army with me. Let's go. Yeah. I'ma pop a shell, but not what you think. Who am I root? Make it dead a leg sink. We are on a mission, we're here to save Christmas. McGreedy's going down, forget about the riches. Rumors gone around, McSkitty's got snitches. It's an insider threat, and everyone's suspicious. Recon McRed is hunting down a witness. He says he needs our help, so power on your system. Get your black hoodie, boot up the attack box. Hackers come together and take command of the SOC. It's the THM Army, McGreedy will get caught from the 0x1 all the way up to the gods. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to Advent of Cyber. Believe it or not, we have made it to day 23 and we are so close to saving Christmas. My name is Tyler Ramsbey and I have the honor of walking through day 23 with you. So if you haven't already, boot up the attack box and let's get ready to go. We are on day 23, Coerced Authentication, Relay all the way. And here is the story. McSkitty is unable to authenticate to her server. Not a good thing. It seems that McGreedy has struck again and changed the password. We know it's him, since Log McBlue confirmed to the logs that there were authentication attempts from his laptop. We got you. Online brute force attacks don't seem to be working, so it's time for us to get creative. We know that the server has a network file share. That's a huge thing to highlight, network file share. When you see that, we want to keep this attack in mind. So if we can trick McGreedy, perhaps, just perhaps, we can get him to disclose a new password to us. Let's get to work. Before we dive into this, I just want to point out to you guys, the scenario that we are doing is super realistic. Anytime I'm doing an internal pen test, what we're going to see here is one of the ways you get into the network, one of the ways you can get hashes, crack those hashes, or relay hashes. So truly, this is really realistic stuff. Whether you're on the blue team to know how to defend against, or the red team or a pen tester to know how to get that initial access, this really is huge. So what are our learning objectives? Number one, the basics of network file shares. Number two, understanding NTLM authentication. Number three, knowing how NTLM authentication coercion attacks work. Four, how responder works for authentication coercion attacks. Try to say that 3 times fast. And finally, forcing authentication coercion using link files. All right, connect to the machine. If you haven't already, go ahead and review this. What you need is the attack box and to start the VM. And we can dive in from there. You're also welcome to use your own VM on the VPN if you would like, but for this room, we do recommend using the attack box because the tools that you need are already preloaded on the attack box for you. So, in today's task, we're going to look at NTLM authentication and how threat actors can perform authentication coercion attacks. And what I'm going to do is, I was thinking I'm going to explain all of this, but honestly, the task lays it out so well, I want us to read through most of this. So sharing is caring. You can imagine when it comes to computers, the reason they're powerful is because they are connected to each other. But as an attacker, we can also abuse the reality that these computers are connected together. So in a network, there's no need for every user to have their own printer. That's an example. Instead, the organization can buy a couple of large printers that all employees can share. I'm sure you've seen this in your own workplace. Another example is file shares. Instead of each employee having local copies of files and needing to perform crazy version control with old school methods like flash drives or floppy disks, depending on your age, the organization can deploy a network file share. Since files are stored in a central location, it's easy to access them and it's easy to secure them, or so you think. However, if these same file shares can let an organization in hot water with red teamers, well, why? Well, usually any employee has the ability to create a new network share. This is the big thing I want to point out to you. Even like initial access to an AD environment with a low level account with no privileges, you're probably going to be able to create a network file share or write to a network file share, and that's where it gets dangerous. This can cause 2 issues. Number one, if a threat actor gains read access, they can look to exfiltrate sensitive information. In file shares of large orgs, you can often find interesting things just lying around, such as credentials or sensitive customer documents. And this is unfortunately very true. Getting access to an internal pen test, one of the first things you do is you just dive into SMB shares, and you sometimes will just find a file called passwords.txt, almost like you're in a CTF, and they work. It's crazy stuff. And number two, if the threat actor gains write access, they could alter information stored in the share, potentially overwriting critical files or staging other attacks, which is exactly what we are going to do. Now, to understand this, we need to know NTLM authentication. So if you did not do day 11, I would encourage you to go day 11 so you can learn about AD and Kerberos. Now we're going to learn NTLM. So file shares are often used on servers and workstations connected to an AD domain. This allows AD to take care of access management for the file share. Once connected, it's not only local users on the host who will have access to the file share, all users will have access to, at least those with permissions. Similar to what we saw in day 11, Kerberos authentication can be used to access these file shares. However, we'll be focusing on the other authentication protocol, Net NTLM or NTLM authentication. And I just want to say, if all of this sounds like a foreign language to you, totally fine. TryHackMe has some really good AD rooms, going from the basics of AD to breaching AD to exploiting AD to persisting AD. Really good rooms that are going to teach you from the ground up. So as we're going through this, if you feel lost, that's okay. Take a deep breath, and then after the holidays are over, take a rest. After the holidays are over, dive into those AD rooms, and you will become a pro at all of this strange language we have going on here. But before we can talk about NTLM, a new word here, server message block. You may have heard it as SMB, and it allows workstations to communicate with a server like a file share. This is even a printer. The out-of-paper alert on your printer is coming from SMB networking. So this is a big thing in basically all networks that are AD and Windows based. However, the security of earlier versions of the SMB protocol was deemed insufficient. Several vulns and exploits were discovered that could be leveraged to recover credentials or even gain code execution on devices. Although some of these were resolved in newer versions, legacy systems don't support them, so organizations rarely enforce their use. And here's the big thing with big organizations. On the red team, we have to think, hey, you have a vulnerability, just patch your stuff. But what you don't realize, if you've never worked in those bigger orgs, which I have on the blue team side, I'm now a pen tester, but I was on the blue team, there's a long change control process. One change here might break a bunch of legacy systems that are like mission critical to the business. So it is actually quite difficult to enforce some of the security without breaking big things. So we still see this all the time in real organizations. Net NTLM, often referred to as Windows authentication or just NTLM authentication, allows the application to play the role of a middleman between the client and AD. Net NTLM is a very popular authentication protocol in Windows and is used for various different services, including SMB and RDP. It is used in AD environments as it allows servers such as network file shares to pass the buck to AD for authentication. So look how in the animation below. So we have our application user, and we'll start from the beginning at 1. We're going to send a request access. That's going to give a server in a challenge. We send our response by signing the challenge to our password hash, goes to the DC compares it, and then it goes back to us. And here it's going to explain it a little bit. When a user wants to authenticate to the server, so that's us, the server responds with a challenge, and that's what's going on there. The user can then encrypt the challenge using their password, but note that's not their actual password, but the hash derived from the password to create a response that is sent back to the server. The server then passes both the challenge and response to the domain controller. You can see that going on right there. Since it knows the user's password hash, that is the domain controller, it can verify the response. Is this coming from a legit user? Should we grant access? If the response is correct, the domain controller can notify the server that the user has been successfully authenticated and that the server can provide access. This prevents the application or server from having to store the user's creds, which are now securely and exclusively stored in the domain controller. Here's a trick. If we could intercept these authentication requests and challenges, we could leverage them to gain unauthorized access. So if we can become them, man in the middle, what can we do? Well, responding to the race, there are usually lots of authentication requests and challenges flying on the network. A popular tool that can be used to intercept them is Responder. And I would encourage you, if you're trying to break into the field of pen testing, learn about Responder. If you are doing an on-site penetration test, and this is big, the on-site piece is key. One of the first things you do is turn on Responder 8 in the morning while everybody is logging in, and you can often capture some hashes that you might be able to pass or crack later on. But there's a problem. Many organizations post-COVID have moved to remote work, which I personally think is an awesome thing. I am remote, but that makes the red team and the pen tester job a little bit more difficult because we don't see all that traffic going around when we're on a VPN. So I really love this room because it shows a workaround or a way to bypass that even when you're pen testing from a VPN. So on a real LAN, responder will attempt to poison any link local multicast name resolution, LLMNR, NetBIOS name service, and web proxy auto-discovery requests that are detected. On large Windows networks, these protocols allow hosts to perform their own local DNS resolutions for all hosts on the same local network. Our role as a pen tester is we are going to pretend like we are that, and we might be able to capture some hashes. There's kind of two problems with this, and I think the room will explain it. One is it can be noisy, and two, users will get access denied. So they might say, something fishy is going on here. And here's the big thing. Since these rely on requests broadcast in the local network, our rogue device running responder would receive them too. They usually just be dropped since they were not meant for us. However, responder will actively listen and send poison responses saying, yeah, we are that host name. And by poisoning these requests, responder attempts to force the client to connect to our attack box. In the same line, it starts to host several servers such as SMB, HTTP, SQL, and others to capture these requests and force authentication. And it says, hey, if you want to go deeper, check out Bridging AD, which I really do recommend. Excellent room. This was really popular when it was possible to gain access, like just what I was talking about. But here's the issue. With remote working, it doesn't work as well. Now users are on a VPN. So we have to get creative, and this is coercion. Unconventional coercion. If we can't just listen to and poison requests, well, we have to create our own. This brings a new attack vector into the spotlight called coercion. Instead of waiting for a request, we force the request to authenticate to us. Now look at this. If the password of the account is weak, we could crack the NTLM challenge offline using tools such as Hashcat or John the Ripper. In the real world, you'll often use like a specialized cracking gig with a really nice GPU or cloud-based cracking services that use really powerful computers to do that. You're not usually doing it locally, but still good to understand how that works. Two incredibly popular versions of coerced authentication are Print Spooler and Petit Potam. Fun to say. So Print Spooler, you may have heard of, is an attack that coerces the Print Spooler service on Windows host to authenticate to a host of our choosing. Petit Potam is similar, but leverages a different issue to coerce authentication. In these cases, it's the machine account. All right, so not a user account, the machine account that performs the authentication. So you can imagine if you do this to a domain controller, you're going to have a lot of power in the Active Directory network. Check out Exploiting AD to get hands-on with that. But here's what we are doing. Coercing the connectee. We're going to focus more on coercing users into authenticating to us. And this is what we do when we do an internal pen test, is one of the first things we do when we get right access to a share. With this approach, we have a much higher chance of cracking one of the challenges and gaining access as the user, because users have weak passwords, machine passwords are usually really long, and you're not going to be able to crack it. Users are now mostly connecting to file shares via VPN, so we can't simply run responder and hope for the best. So the question remains, how can we coerce users to authenticate to something we control? Well, let's put it together. If we have write access to a network file share, and that's where we need to begin. We need to have write access, and it has to be used regularly. Like, users have to go to the file share, or else this attack is not going to work. But if we do have that, we can create a sneaky little file to coerce those users to authenticate to our server. We can do this by creating a file that, when viewed within the file browser, will coerce authentication automatically. There are many different file types that can be used for this, but they all work similarly, coercing authentication by requesting that an element, such as a file icon, is loaded from a remote location. We are going to use the almighty NTLM theft tool to create these documents. If you're not using the attack box, you have to download the tool in first. Super easy though, you just get clone it and it's ready to go. If you're on the attack box, here is the path. So let's go ahead and get our terminal open, and let's go to that path. So we'll cd or change directory, root, rooms, AOC 2023, day 23, and NTLM theft. And we have it right there. And if we do Python 3, we'll do -H to show the help options, and you can see a little bit about what we are able to do with this. For our specific example, we will create a link file using the following commands. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to do Python 3, NTLM theft. And I do just want to say something on typing this out. I know it's easy just to copy and paste commands when you're doing a TryHackMe room. I always type them out fully, even the long commands, because I think there's something important in learning the muscle memory. So take it from me, when you're learning cybersecurity, when you're learning ethical hacking, and you're going through TryHackMe, type it all out, make mistakes as you do it. That's one of the best ways you can learn, is debugging your terrible spelling. At least it is for me. So NTLM theft -G, we want to make a link file, and S, we're going to give it the attacker IP, which is RIP. If you're on the attack box, you can see RIP right there. So we'll do 10.10.14.75-F, and we'll just call it stealthy. And there we go. It created that link. So McGreedy much. We know that McGreedy is a little snoopy. We all know people like that. So let's add the link file to our network share and hope he walks right into our trap. Using our favorite editor, we can inspect it that we have created. We're going to add this to a network file share to coerce authentication. So connect to the file share on here, and you can use SMB client to connect as shown below. So we will go ahead and CD to our stealthy folder, and we're going to do SMB client, which is simply built into Linux, a way that we can connect to SMB shares. And we are going to connect anonymously or with guest credentials, as you can see with the user guest, and then we have no password. So we'll do SMB client. We need to do the IP of the server we want to target, 6 like that. And we want to connect to the ELF share, and we want to do it as the guest user. And if we do dir, you can see, hey, we have a few things here. We have greedykeys.txt, which might be important for us, and we will get to that. But here we go. Our first command will connect to the share as a guest. The second command will upload our file, so we still need to do that. And the third command will list it for verification. So to upload our file, we'll just do put, very simple, and stealthy.link. And if we do dir there, we can see stealthy.link is there. If you're not using the attack box, you have to replace it, etc., etc. Let's open up a new tab, and we are going to start responder. If you're running your own machine, you do have to run responder as root. So if you do sudo, but on the attack box, we're already running as root, so we don't have to run it with sudo privileges. So to do this, we're going to do responder-I just means, hey, here's the interface we want to listen on. And so ENS5 is the interface on the attack box, and we'll do that. Now what this is going to do is it's just going to start listening, and it's waiting. As soon as McGreedy accesses this file share, this .link is pointing at our server, our attack box. So we are that really server in the middle, and we are going to receive that challenge hash signed with the user's hash. So let's give McGreedy a couple of minutes. He might be taking a hot chocolate break right now, but we should hear back from him in less than 5 minutes. So if it's taking a little bit, you take a coffee break yourself, or a hot chocolate break, or a water break, whatever it is that you drink, or a tea break. Some of y'all like tea. I don't like tea. I don't even like coffee. I just drink energy drinks because I have the taste buds of a teenager. But take a drink break if it's not there, and it will come pretty quickly. But we need to get this greedykeys.txt. And did you guys see that over here? Greedykeys.txt. The way we can get files from an SMB share is we will just do get greedy, if I could type, greedykeys.txt. There we go. And now if we exit out of here, we have greedy keys, and if we cat it and look at what greedy keys is, it's a bunch of possible passwords. So this is just speeding up the process for us, so we know what our word list is in order to crack this hash once we get it. If we go back over to responder, right now it is a lot of waiting. So take your coffee break, take your hot chocolate break, and let's come back when this hash is ready to go. All right, everyone, welcome back. Hope you had a nice short break, but here we are. We waited just a few minutes, and you can see we have the administrator account, the password that McGreedy updated, and we have this NTLM version 2 hash right here. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and copy this full hash. So we'll copy that. And we'll go to this tab right here where we have our greedykeys.txt. You can see my greedykeys.txt. And we're just going to do nano hash.txt. Now, if you're new to Linux, nano is just a text editor. So think of like Notepad on Windows. That's sort of what nano is like. So we'll do nano hash.txt. And then we will just right click and paste our hash in here. And then this looks super overwhelming when you first get into nano. But to exit, the caret key is control on your keyboard. So I'm going to hold control and hit the X button, and it says save modified buffer. I'm going to click Y for yes, and then hit enter on your keyboard. And then if we cat it out, we can see our hash is right there. Now we're going to use something called John the Ripper in order to see if we can crack this hash, get the clear text password with the greedykeys.txt that we have. And the way we are going to do that is if we do John word list equals, if I could spell word list properly, that'd be a good starting point, greedykeys.txt, and then we want to target the hash.txt. And you can see that successfully cracked the admin's password. And so we have greedy grabber1 @. So after a few seconds, we'll receive the password magic. We have access again. Take back control by using the username and password to authenticate to the host via RDP. And what I'm going to actually do is, I know RDP is common. Want to show you guys a little bit of a different tool if you might be new to it, called Evil WinRM. And it's the way I often do this when I have authentication on a machine in this way, is using Evil WinRM. But if you do want to use RDP, if you do Remina, cancel on that. And I'll show you both ways, actually. Let me show you RDP, and then I'll show you Evil WinRM as well. So if you do Remina, we can do RDP, and it's saying, hey, what is the IP? So we're going to grab that for the IP, and we will paste that in and hit enter. Hit yes to accept the certificate, and here is our password. I should probably save that to our notepad so I don't lose it. Let me pull up Sublime Text here, and we don't need to update. And we'll do that. Let's grab our password, greedygrabber1@, and go down to Remina here. We will type in administrator, and I'm pasting in the password there. Hit OK. And we have compromised the admin's account. When you're in Remina, if you hit this, it will do dynamic resolution to make it look a lot nicer, so it's not that small little box. And now when we're on here, we go to desktop, there we go, and we have this flag.txt, and that is of course our final flag. Now I want to show you guys how to do this with Evil WinRM if we want to do it just from the command line. Another helpful tool that I think is good to know. We will just go ahead and close out Remina. What I did there was Control-C to close it out, and to do Evil WinRM, we'll do Evil WinRM-U, and we are administrator, -P is our password, which is greedygrabber1 @ and -I is going to be our IP of 10.10.73.6. And there we go. Now we also have access this way. So if I CD this, CD to the desktop, enter, and we have flag.txt, so we can type flag.txt and get that final flag. So now that we have the final flag, now that we have performed the attack, let's go ahead and walk through these questions. So what is the name of the AD authentication protocol that makes use of tickets? Now, if you don't know this one, go back to day 11. This is going to be Kerberos, which we learned about on day 11. What is the name of the AD authentication protocol that makes use of the NTLM hash? Well, we can say it's the NTLM. What is the name of the tool that can intercept these authentication challenges? Well, if you remember, the tool that we were running, that man in the middle right here, is Responder. What is the password that McGreedy set for the administrator account? And that was at greedy grabby thing. Let's pull up Sublime Text at greedygrabber1@, so we'll just Control-C that and paste that in there. What is the flag that is placed on the administrator's desktop? And that's THM greedy McNot not so steely. That is also hard to say 3 times. There we go. And finally, if you enjoyed the task, check out the compromising AD module. Really is good stuff. All the AD modules on TryHackMe are excellent. Would encourage you to check those out to dig more into AD because it is so prevalent in the real world. But that finishes up day 23 for us. I want to say thank you for taking the time to hang out with me to learn this together. Happy hacking, and let's continue to save Christmas. I'll see you guys next time.